Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe so that you can be notified whenever I post a new video, and make sure that you leave your comment in the comment section. So we're looking at essay type of tests. We're looking at essay type of tests, and I am your presenter, Dume MS. So coming to our learning outcomes, our lesson will be guided by the following learning outcomes. We'll look at the definition of essay tests, and then we'll move on to look at the advantages of essay tests, the disadvantages of essay tests, and the essentials of a good test, or characteristics of a good text, test. Thereafter, you'll be required to answer some follow-up questions. So these are our learning outcomes in this lesson. So coming to the definition of essay test. An essay test can be defined as one or more questions administered to a group of pupils under certain conditions to elicit or rather get their responses in writing at length, for the purpose of testing how much they can remember from what they've already learned. So an essay test can be defined as one or more questions administered to a group of pupils, and it is administered under certain conditions, and for the purpose of getting or eliciting the responses in writing at a length, for the purpose of testing how much. Here you want to know how much your learners can remember from what they have learned. So in addition to that, an essay test can be administered when you want to know how fully the learners have understood. If you want to know how well or how fully the learners have understood, you can use an essay test. Also, an essay test can be administered in order to know how far the learners can give you a reasonable explanation from what they have learned. So in other words, or in addition to this, we can say an essay test, it gives the learners an opportunity to express their original ideas on a certain topic. So learners, they have an opportunity to express their original ideas on a certain topic. So having defined what an essay test is, we can move on to look at the advantages or merits of a good test. Advantages of a good test. So a question can be asked: what are the advantages of an essay test? So the following are some of the advantages of an essay test. The first one is that it gives the pupils practice in the choice and correct use of words to express themselves. Learners are given an opportunity to choose and correctly use the words to express themselves. So this is one of the advantages. The second advantage is that an essay test provides the teacher with knowledge about the competence of the pupils in written expression. So when you as a teacher, you're marking a test, you can know the competence of your learners in a written explanation. And for those that are lagging behind, this can give you an opportunity to help them because you will know where they're lagging behind. The third advantage is that an essay test encourages originality and creativity in pupils. So it encourages originality and creativity in pupils. The fourth advantage is that an essay test, it encourages clear and logical organization of ideas in the pupils. So it will help the pupils to develop skills in where they can write things in a logical way, in an orderly manner, and they can present the ideas in a clear way, in a clear and precise manner. The other advantage is that an essay test, in an essay test, pupils are able to express their own point of view. So here, the pupils are given an opportunity to express their own point of view. So in addition to that, we can also say that the other advantage of an essay test is that it is not time consuming in preparation, because this is where you just write maybe 1, 2, or 3 questions. So it's very easy to prepare. It can even be prepared in 2 minutes, 5 minutes, you're done. So it is not time consuming in preparation. Then the last advantage of an essay test is that it reduces the possibility of guesswork. Since learners are given an opportunity to express themselves, so it reduces the possibility of guesswork. So having looked at the advantages of an essay test, we can move on to look at the disadvantages or demerits of a good test. So answering the question, what are the disadvantages of an essay test? What are the demerits of an essay test? The following some of the demerits or disadvantages of an essay test. The first one is that the marking and grading of essay test requires expert judgment, which is difficult to obtain. So marking and grading of essay tests, it requires expert judgment, which is difficult to obtain, because some markers, they don't even read through. So there you can wrongly grade. It can affect the marking because some of the points will be left out. So an essay test, it requires expert judgment, and this skill, it is difficult to obtain. It is not common. The other disadvantage is that scoring is subjective and it's actually time consuming on the part of the teacher, because the teacher has to read through a word for word, so it's somehow time consuming. And the scoring is subjective. Sometimes the teacher would mark according to the way he or she wants, and at times when the teacher is tired, and it can affect the marks. So the other disadvantage is that an essay test, in an essay test, validity is low. So validity can be defined as this is where a test is supposed to measure what it's supposed to measure. So at times learners can copy from their friends, can get ideas, they can write some points on a piece of paper, and then they copy from there. So at times validity is low. Then the other disadvantage is that an essay test, sometimes focus is limited to certain subject areas. So in an essay test, focus is limited to certain subject areas. Certain subjects cannot be you cannot write essay questions. For instance, why you have to make calculations, it becomes hard for you to start writing an essay. There you have to make calculations. So the focus is limited to certain subject areas. And then the last one is that at times some irrelevant factors can be considered. For instance, poor handwriting, poor spellings, grammatical errors, and disorderly arrangement of ideas. These factors can be they can affect the performance of the learner, even if they've written the correct points. For instance, if the handwriting is poor, the marker can be put off, and the marker can end up missing important points. And then wrong spellings as well, it can affect the performance of the learner. Poor grammatical errors, all these can affect the performance of the learner. At times a marker can consider such factors which are not even important. So these are some of the disadvantages of an essay test. Having looked at the disadvantages of an essay test, we can move on to look at the essentials of a good test, or the characteristics of a good test. So the following are some of the um, characteristics of a good test. The first one is validity. So what is it we mean on validity? Here what we mean is that a good test should measure what it is supposed to measure. For instance, if I want to know how well you understand the definition for psychology, and then instead of me testing you on that, I bring something else, it means I'm not measuring the thing that I'm supposed to measure. So a good test should have a validity. It should measure that which is supposed to measure. And then the second characteristic or essential is liability. So on liability, here what we mean is that a test should be consistent to the same pupils all the years. So if the same test is administered twice to the same pupils, you should provide the same results. So now if I give a test today and then you score 100%, next week I give you the same test, you score 0%, it means the test lacks liability. So it is not producing consistent results. So a good test should be reliable. It should be consistent in providing or in producing the results. Then the last characteristic is practicability. So on practicability, what is it that we mean? So here we're looking at how practical it is to administer the test. How practical it is to administer the test. So when we say how practical it is to administer the test, what is it that we mean? Here we are looking at the following factors. The first one is time and cost. You have to look at time and cost. How cost the test is, whether it's expensive or it's not expensive, or whether it can be administered within a certain period of time or it needs a lot of time. All these should be considered. Also, you have to look at how easy a test is to administer. Some tests are difficult to administer, so you also have to look at that factor. Then in addition to that, you have to look at easy interpretation of the test. How easy it is to interpret the test. The learner should be able to easily interpret the questions. Imagine while you prepare a test, you give the questions, the learners can't even understand the thing. So a test should be, the learner should be able to easily create the test so that they can give you the correct answers. And then the last factor on practicability is how useful a test is. You have to look at how useful a test is. So these are some of the characteristics or essentials of a good test. So in your coming to the follow-up questions, in your own free time, I want you to answer the following questions. The first question is, what is an essay test? What is an essay test? The second question is, what are the characteristics of a good test? What are the characteristics of a good test? And then the last question is, discuss 4 merits and demerits of an essay test. Here I made a mistake, it's supposed to be essay test, not essay questions. So discuss the 4 merits and demerits of an essay test. Thank you very much for your time.